our speaker power. People's Omega Wall. Energy rises. Why? Each letter spells out a word. Each word spells out sentence. In nature of word. Why? How? Shared identity. Space nature has one identity. Let ancients teach. The science broke all guys. And worse, indifference engineering reaching means between all nations. Rise is power. Is not top down, but overall. In nature of the value of our walls is just top down and justified with lies and with delusions. Nations weep. All different. Same game to hold that blamed on different means. To hold such evil justified. Morality not let be taught. The law, yet unaccosted by itself. Predatory litigation nations. Crime. See value why, and always why. The law, I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. The law is actively in demonstration to us. If actively being exploited areas, law different, most important right different, actively to all finite, to all body value, overall. It's no prejudice need to play law, go after prejudice, go after lie with lie, predatory legal nature. They lie. Change prejudice, change word prejudice to indifference, to evidence fabrication. Let science teach. Why all pray for garden, not one reach, but just with guys. In little plot that colonization's terror laws made. Why? Indifference with the linguistic fields we lost to in the American Revolution. In every nation, every semi-ancient nation, every modern nation was only allowed, realized, lost to this. With the sciences, now with linguistics, with treatments of the facts, with morality, with indifference. Indifference is the enemy in prejudice. When not. In prejudice is tool and weapon, why and how, between treatments of the facts. Non see all connected to all forced to see surface think, an expert lean. Stay evil. Morality not let voice like law. Force predatory litigation natures. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police. I'm not a criminal. Forced predatory litigation relations in relationship to terror never let explain. This is why they never the American Civil War. They make everything in relationship to physics and people, because they never let we lost. In other words, we got breached by the same terror systems that only let those animal litigation natures, foreign ones, intercultural ones, establish terror laws here with colonization. This was not just to divide us. That's just the surface thing, and it was to divide us in linguistic fields. In other words, now we're blaming everything on lies and delusions, the actual causes of poverty. We're blaming it on color. Why? Because they put the law there, not just that all kinds of terror laws, and they put the sciences with treatment, with an engineering of indifferences to the exploitation, to roles shared with means shared to lie about exploitations of all ages of innocence. This is exactly why our standards why so many bad things are at once, hundreds, and then standardized so to millions, I mean, everyone, to the whole entire species, trillions, billions of people. How many people? There's billions. There's billions, probably. There's billions. There's not trillions of people. But we have problems, and that's why everyone's supposed to pray for garden, not just because of the symbol garden, because there's one unchanging positive, nature of positive. See, when we're speaking of nature as a value, we need to be looking at it, understanding it this way, understanding a phrase is a nature distinct from a clause. Now we're going to learn English. In other words, English is obfuscated because they only let it taught that way and justified that way in relationship to each science with all kinds of, in other words, they share other lies and delusions from other sciences juxtaposed to treatments in the nature of English, for example, and of communications, and of basic fundamental, sensibilities, which are engineered to us with in relationship to not just certain known and discernible indifferences, but to that roles with the engineering that which stays that blamed on lies and delusions, and how it's in linguistic fields with indifferences that leave worse than expert lean, what leads with only let experts lean like that, with fake sophistications. That's what the tide is about too. Anyone real starts with this is the nervous system of a archetypal criminal enterprise that there are proofs of. I'm not a lawyer. Archetypal criminal enterprise is one that juxtaposed, but in other words, in relationship to the sciences. When we're talking about what made the sciences criminally re-engineer ancient revelations to perpetually exploit human nature, every nation only let it realized to sophistications that were Oz exploiting the sophistication, the pseudo-educated only let categorically populations below them in the name of science a weapon, and glorified and force glorified with ill sensibilities, not by accident. We have an engineering of indifference, So we need. So when I say things about like weapon A and stuff like that, this is about in the field that hurts not one. And I'm not. And this is not just because it's good word. The reason it's good words, it's because that's what religion's about. In other words, what took the body of the human species from being able to use why it is a species, to understand it, to see that, understand it, and correlate the range that what is positive value always, not in relationship to this value nature system, and not in relationship to ignoring the larger, most evil, top-down overall evil. But we're doing that because we only have top-down overall sophistications that are only let realized, trained to justification. That's exploitations of that. And people don't understand that because people are never, in other words, at regular basic education level, we have lies and delusions relationship to, so people never understand that because of the losses, the American Revolution. In other words, they had to keep their shared policing secret. Not just because they had terror laws with slavery, intercultural, but intercultural. Why would they want to hurt people like that? Because they want a linguist. In other words, they were only realized as animals. You know what I'm saying? By the sciences. So, we have to get the top down, the biggest criminal enterprise. So we're going to name it an archetypal criminal enterprise. In other words, it criminally re-engineered education to force and hurt and terrorize human nature, not to trust internation science. And to break down science, and break it down, and that breaks down the nature of human value. The reason we have women, you could have kids that are man or female, and the reason we have a shared identity as a species, not only demonstration of the Trinity, but in other words, it's a demonstration of what you have to teach to have the body of your land defend. You can't just defend yourself in relationship to business. See, that's a dream. That's what this is part of the indifference method. In other words, we're defending. This is what, in other words, in the beginning of the Old Testament, the sciences are holding it forced to delusions because they have it industrialized. What it means is in relationship to archetypal criminal enterprise. So in the generation of Adam and Eve, this is being used. In other words, you know how I like to have oral tradition, and they tell a story to remember things. This is to explain how we have to beat what holds the sciences to holding an engineering of indifferences that have shared means to get away with it. And not only do they have shared means to get away with it, they have shared needs to get away with it. Because what holds that nature to all areas also hold means to exploit that between every nation, sharing sciences, sharing conviction natures, self-defense natures, perpetually incapable of not being exploited by it. In other words, not seeing its needs to cover up lies and progressions blamed on other things. In other words, juxtaposed with other crimes, with other criminal enterprises. How these happen? Because once they criminally re-engineered education, now they made the nations the only realized modern. When I say modern nations, all lost to the same thing. They were only realized with their top-down sophistication, legal nature, words teaching about the law, about the sciences, about reality. They were only realized as wrongdoers in relationship to what they didn't understand, which is the archetypal criminal enterprise. See, but what they did understand, they were more sophisticated than the rest of the people. Now you're taking from education and mass. That's how they forced it. The kings and queens and pharaohs measured, extorted, per what they didn't understand. Because they took the human education first. They took the nature first. And they kept it. But they kept it tricked because they knew that first, just by changing it like that, and this connects to finite motivations and means and needs to do this in relationship to what actually plays out. Because it plays out in ways that no one ever thinks it's going to play out, because the way it was set up to exploit these indifferences. Because everyone was only realized to have basic education breached with criminal insidiousness narratives juxtaposed to force realized summary convictions with American history, for example. And that's a self-defense nature relationship to only realized science, realized and policed and criminally policed, in other words, demonstrably, but with our facts, treatments, and indifferences incapable of realizing it. because of top-down summary convictions with passions forced to be entertained, defended. In other words, training sensibilities to fight ratiocination before it could even, you know, in other words, has all these lies and delusions with interscience, with categorically, we have too many of them juxtaposed with justifications of morality and of treatments. For example, then you have defense nature. Then you have teachers who can't explain reality because they're being taught to lie. They're being taught to just force a nature, like the same justification they have of business with the media and with the news and with businesses who want to do advertising. That motivations, that motivation is training like little criminals. It's training criminals. That's what you training a criminal to lie and to be a good liar and have sensibilities that that's just the way things are. Right from the beginning schools. There's no, that's why they failed to explain the American Revolution. That's why they failed to explain the Civil War. Everybody's Oz. Everybody's Oz. But no one will admit it. You know what I'm saying? And because no one will admit it, too, because the legal natures are forced to use, even using the political parties as weapons to the self-defense nature of their treatments only they realized of morality and of sciences and of words. You know, in linguistic fields we lost to, not by accident. You can't describe the Abraham Lincoln just a person. What he faced was what was entrenched with indifferences invested categorically for linguistic fields to keep not only him, but to date, everybody accosted by the self-defense of logic, again, juxtaposed with original lies and delusions, insidious narratives, not just connected, in other words, connected to invested needs to stay lies. In other words, that's why, and it's connected to what's actively exploiting all areas. This is why we have the crimes. And they have lies and delusions actively attached to them saying, well, look at the statistics. This is normal for our human nature. And they point to that. And they know they're telling, juxtaposing lies and delusions with it, and just pretend, because everyone does it. And it's not by accident. In other words, those indifferences and the means to keep up the lies connected to doing it. And the means that force that, you know, in other words, people actively, the law would demonstrate to us if we let it free. But we have too many lies and delusions and fake passions and stuff like that stay manifest like that. And that's what we're asking to be defended. Fake passions, like insidious, like murderers, they have to do all kinds of serious things. They're interacting. They have to hide, you know, lies, or like especially political ones. You know what I'm saying? Or in other words, just because the people say the word political, and whatever, they have these shared ways of talking with senses and with facts treatments only realize juxtaposed with lies and delusions. That's why it has to keep calling everything business, because it was never given. Humanity was never given the ancient revelations. Not, in other words, we were given only realized top-down litigation natures with motivations, needs to defend life progressions in relationship to them defending other than real law. What is actively not the right to vote. Everyone is inherently a legal nature. This is what justice. This is what Marbury versus Madison means. In other words, and if you don't, if you take an interpretation, you always say this: only the electorate is deserves rights. There's people that would say that. Yeah, it's like a cap. It makes a nature of like a serial killer, legal nature, agency type thing. Like, and where this is connected to the Civil War. They had psychology connected to the courts and like all kinds of, they did all kinds of things on and off the records that we know, and everyone's awed because we treat the nature of the businesses in relationship to that. In other words, they had all the police forms juxtaposed, all the branches of government juxtaposed with criminal roles with that, with breaching roles, because they would have breaching entrenchments. They used those terror laws not because they were prejudiced, because international methods forced every human people to force terror database relationships without even having to have computers, the same way they do it with the computers, by having terror laws and everyone divided and conquered on linguistic fields. Everyone only letting lies and delusions justified so much and categorically per the nature of the roles of the sciences with this, and with the only let realized litigation natures, and with what stays internation blamed on money, but it's not money. It's method to all areas, method to keep the interests invested to roles that need to tell lies. So it's with the streets, actively it's problem. With the campuses, actively it's problem. In other words, so this is with the problem. There's like the gun problem is directly tied to what's been policing our campuses. There are countless proofs, but if you try to report them, it's per the method of the natures of crime and methods of crime that already has all the area people needing to keep top-down lies and delusions standardized, only let realized, animal natures of police and of prison connections to campuses and sciences in ways nobody realizes because they don't see all the connections. And with the databases, we have original terror database, not only into the relationship to the top-down legal natures with colonization, in other words, even England and the other extorted nations, even France, they didn't understand, they still don't understand the interscience that plays the top-down terrors with roles, only letting realized retreat nature leaders, no matter what type they are, with mass hurt conviction natures, juxtaposed with treatments of logic differentially to the same net when no one could speak honestly, and it has to speak anyways, so it has to entertain sensibilities in relationship to what actually holds human standards, lives, and processes, and jobs, and value nature systems, a negative value nature progression, and what actually hides it and methodically keeps it blamed on other lies and delusions, using only let realized, exploited educational nature, human nature, as weapons juxtaposed with other neat causes for these crimes. They're not all caused by, they're not all what they're writing down attached to these acts. Maybe they catch the people who do these acts, but they're not catching everyone attached to all that's involved with it. Oh, sit. Stand. We clap our hands. Nothing changes. Because freedom of speech is only forced to be just an expression and not let, in other words, they just put lies and everything in the databases. Why? How? What seeds them with the needs to do that categorically. The state, the interstate, and federal, all breached. Yet none have teach. So the American Civil War was about organized crime, breaching method, entrenchments, that we had yet for free speech. Abraham Lincoln and the people behind him, their dream was to have free speech someday defended. In other words, real. In other words, because you could, the lies and delusions that are forced to quash people with the points that could prove and could have proved all kinds of child abuses and things that went on through time. Those are maintained by lies needed to all areas per the nature of only let realized, justified, exploited police connections. So no, and there's so many police form connections. We're sharing international police, and they're sharing so many investigations, known even. You know what I'm saying? So that's not by accident. That's a retreat nature relationship to top, at the same time with top-down foreign terrors in relationship to them being terrorized too, because every nation, it was only let with realized nature's sophistications with ties on, not in other words, as tool natures, as Oz, breaching nature, evil, hurt, evidence fabrication nature, delusion propagation nature, in defense of that, in defense of all they've ever litigated and stuff like that. I'm not even a lawyer. That's what the facts reveal when you look at what looks away. What really makes everyone look away from what poverty needs, you know. So it becomes a front, you know, give it a couple of toys, you know, give it that, but it's it's in native dreams. Even all of us have to use. We have to use the Native American. We have to use religions to pray. In other words, not to rise for what pray means. The garden. It means there's only one value nature system, and the whole lands were tactically denatured in relationship to what the problem is here. The problem is that we don't have the we don't have the we don't have the thing defended. We don't have truth defended. In other words, we don't have we don't have the ability to protract proofs and actual moral logic and facts treatments in relationship to rushing, predatory, offensive, self-defense natures of law with nations. This is why with Haiti, why they're in those little things worse than the terror laws of colonization made for the home plots we have. And not by accident, they put all the stuff underground, you know. So they get the guys who fish. They don't, with passions like they care about the environment, but their facts treatments are roles with the organized crime that's denatured it all along. So no one understands the same thing with the Native Americans. But there's too many fronts at once. That's because the science is not by accident. So the devil only let, which is an organized crime, which is more plausible what sciences would reveal if you just say what's criminally re-engineered human education. And it knew that it was only going to let nations realize there's wrongdoers and then weave that into them being criminal, you know, associate criminals in a shared policing nature of business and of justifications of the law linguistically as Oz, as hurt conviction natures, as lie and as delusion propagation natures, but with only let realized worse, bottom up, and maintaining this not only per the breached nature of our branches, with originally never let even understood forced terror legal natures. In other words, they wrote the terror laws, and it was in the North, it was in the South, but it was multi-front with the narratives with it too, and that was for long term. That was for long-term indifferences that we stay stuck with. In other words, with the black and white narratives. Only inherent to color is what's worth anything. Only that's what is invisible. Why we could see space nature as well as what we lose, which is only inherent to it. It is a value of correlation in relationship to what's coming out of us as what's its own body. In other words, our body, all parts of it, they want the same positive identity progressively. And the body that's coming through it, that's enabling this, that's only inherent to the nature of the physical body. And it's three ways, the Trinity. In other words, this has to do with why we eat, and this has to do with diffusion. These make the two L's in value ALL long, but with it invisible. To understand this, you have to understand how English was revealed to be taught. The capital A, there's three physical parts with two space natures. The nature of unchanging positive has a value-nature relationship to itself progressively. Right now, humanity is negative value nature, no longer capable of staying its nature. So it's no longer capable of holding on to us. So Leith of Hades, the bottom of the Z, we're getting pushed away from value progression here. The cause of evolution, which is unchanging positive, is because of a linguistic trick, with an indifference trick, an evidence fabrication trick. Now change the word prejudice to indifference, and just contemplate it, please. And then contemplate all the ways. You know, there's all. Understand that there are all kinds of litigation treatments of facts and liars who are getting away with it by pretending they care about areas, forcing them, in other words, claiming the problem to a color too. Still claim, because we have never had the nature of organized crime with the terror laws of colonization taught to us. Not only have we had it not let us taught to us, we've had the criminal insidiousness narratives needed to sabotage our ability to talk about it and to understand it. So we have the only realized self-defense natures viciously of names like Abraham Lincoln, or of his enemies, like Robert E. Lee. So, and what that is for is because they're not they're keeping it normalized, entertained, blamed on other lies and delusions. What? The organized crime nature and method of litigation natures evolved with breached police that Madison warned us to defend religiously, to defend unchanging truth with Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy real justice always. We know that these sciences failed to win the war on poverty, and not by accident. And there's methods, and there were recorded proofs that there's a nature in self-defense of itself as the police. That if you have facts that they know can prove this, because they're the only ones who could see this nature of organized crime, they just discredit the facts. So that's why just only liars, only guys is led to any microphone. You understand? Only guys. and only women in support of that. In other words, linguistic indifference is necessary for statute sabotage, which is demonstrable through correlation. I'm not even a lawyer. Not just in relationship to the war on poverty, because the same evil in suburbs, which is of a different nature and methods, and and it is not. It's the same people connected to exploiting the urban areas and intercity with the drug problems and with murder problems and with evidence mistreatments too, even with the most serious things, and with the nature of our hospital, not by accident. These indifferences were engineered to stay self-defense natures in relationship to natures of streets. And in other words, it's not just the motivations of the money. I mean, that's part of it too. That's just part of the methods that has everyone measured in relationship to vetting systems that are used for like mass evil. That's who these were methods that were foreign legal natures forced, that were with the revolution. In other words, they had entrenchments already to stay mass evil. Well, in other words, criminal insidiousness natures. There was criminal enterprise that had this with nations multi-front. So, but they're all animal nations. So they couldn't see what was coming through them, exploiting them, and what they're relying on, and what's evolving in relationship to them not understanding this too, which is the devil, an archetypal criminal enterprise. So we understand that criminal enterprise causes criminal insidiousness natures, causes wrongdoers, causes it's run by associate criminals. In other words, it's not the devil is a nature exploitation method. It's a nature exploitation method, and how the nature is defended, justified, must be understood. So no one has the. This is also a breaching method. How they do it, everyone has to understand. But we have self-defense natures that have, with the lies and delusions, with like business and money being told that's convictions. We have psychology, delusion propagating. In other words, they have interest too, to hide incompetence attached to their name. You know what I mean? And not just their name that they're holding attached to lies and delusions. In other words, which is sacred. This is why I call it algebraic consciousness. This is what English was revealed to teach. So when we don't stay within the nature that is only going to be progressive, positive to itself, it's forced away from here. And that's called Leith of Hades. And that stays progressively Hades, hell. In other words, progressively, because like the yin yang, there's the positive and the, well, that's not positive. That's their thing. But there was proofs that internation science together revealed English. And I wouldn't call it positive and negative. I call it, there's positive correlation, or there's positive discorrelation. In other words, we have memory of good and bad, semi-memory, because in demonstration that our nature is lasting memory to the positive value, the identity that we share. In other words, not just with ourselves and with Earth, but that's the one that's coming through temporary space nature. We know there is a nature of positive that was caused to matter and to life coming through matter, and with it all connected. And we know that it goes through it too. So we know it's in three parts. and this is with the Trinity, in other words, in three parts. A part unobstructed and two parts semi-obstructed. And then this is what we're going to teach. We long to reach. We play this game in your game. We train, we game, we legion, tribes, tribes. Inherent to religions is this cause. Who'll say not? Laws of predatory breached, means and differences to mass evil. Again, in relationship to business, people's need, in other words, now this, why can't we just let go of the word business? Like, in other words, why is it so hard not to claim it on business? Because other nations too are forced to agreements with us, with and reliances upon this for their human standards, breached. Yet none have teached between the sciences. In other words, the justifications of sciences are with industry connections, also with policing industries, with political industries, with judicial industries. Now they're only letting people realize, trained to self-defend, treatments of logic that are breached, that are with lies and with delusions, and with the criminal insidiousness narratives, not only in relationship to the surface value things and immediately connected things, but to more complicated, but what maintains the motivations for our most sophisticated to have to exploit and to need to exploit our leaders. In other words, to tell lies in relationship to themselves, in relationship to actual finite, that keeps the momentum's going with the shootings and with the murders and with the more sick natures of crime, the more insidious ones connected to the cover-ups of that, and the methods to covering up that are really what are connected to the more sick crimes, like with people being stolen, and methods to that, and natures with that, and with our schools, and like with these areas, right? And, you know, all along. It's not, and then they have the hurt conviction natures that are their political theater to hurt those victims. I mean, in other words, they're a victim of something to be sick like that. It's not natural human nature. It's taught. It's only let taught, but it's not only on which realized taught by staying the lies and delusions stay. It's what stays these areas, these campuses, as tools for maintenance to cover up lie progressions with natures of crime that no one understands. So when someone starts pointing out the proofs of it that correlate in other words, you have to tell why. You have to, once you try to tell the truth, and then police attach you to lies and start spreading rumors about you, then you have to explain why the police did that. But there's not just one police form at once involved with it. Like, for example, with uncharged 9/11 crimes and with fake witness testimonies with that, and with it tied to interstate and to in-state predatory litigation natures and methods and jail connections, and tied to, you know, serial killer murders with bodies stacked behind a building in related ways, KKK stuff connected to that in related ways, to narratives of people from that grew up around me. And see, they use them for related illusions that were used by related pension thieves with ties to with the kids in my school, who also became police forms and different kinds of professional people So, but they were woven through narratives and used for evidence fabrication roles. They use in the campuses for evidence fabrication roles and needs in relation murderously in relationship to policing conjunctions that aren't even let seen because no one has no one's not let realize to train to defend to glorify what's actively exploited at the same time. And but no one and told, in other words, that's why it's glorified. But they're even that they're putting lies and delusions and insidiousness, criminal insidiousness as wrongdoers every time someone tries to speak for the army and for service people that we got lost, even their own parents. Why? For the same reason we fail our streets here, because we're not dealing with the law. We're just saying in relationship to business. We don't really understand the nature of terrorism and the nature of all sides of roles with it. In other words, because that's why we don't understand in other words, that's just a physical phenomenon that Abraham Lincoln was our president. James Madison left off Marbury versus Madison. Everything that is real justice must satisfy real justice always to be real justice. If it's got those lies in there, they're a reason. In other words, those little insidious lies are connected to her when the only let realize legal natures. This is, in other words, you can't sue even if everyone's invested needing to, with justifications and treatments of what's really behind what held our areas hurt so long. Disgusting stories. But and the people in the jails, they just treat whoever come in there as if they're guilty, even if they're not, and they treat them like already in a hole, torture. But they're using these places to making that happen, not for passion reasons, but for reasons in relationship to how they've been maintaining lie progression cover-ups through the prison databases and the doctors with terror methods equal to in some ways to Joseph Mengele, who did scientific experiments on Jews in relationship to this, in relationship to court and medical conjunctions with laws and statutes telling people they can't talk, telling the people they can't speak about some things, but not and can about others. So they shape the nature of lies and delusions, blamed on other reasons too. So we can't even reveal the necessary lies and delusions because the nature, as predatory litigation nature, shall only let realize self-defense training, and with glorification of the street conjunctions with that, with evidence fabrication role cover-ups. Lie progression cover-ups no one understands. It's because of this logic, relying on everyone, not real facts. That's why we have laws. When someone asks out loud to speak, because within the same predatory courts, they just block. I don't even know if anyone sees my videos. They probably just press the numbers to make it look like someone's seeing it. Because I asked many times to report recorded acts of natures of child abuse, natures of exploitation of people all ages. The police threatened me. They threatened my life. They threatened other women's lives. They abuse kids between town, between cities. This is in juxtaposition with different, not only intercity departments, but intercity legal natures. Per recorded proofs online. You can lie about certain things, but evidence fabrications and related, in other words, they're not even letting they're not even letting anything in writing because they can't justify what they've been justified. So they put fake writing into databases In other words, that's connected to what I'm trying to ask about, which is serious natures of crime, of acts. In other words, in relationship to the threats with the evidence fabrication, the means to get away with it, in relationship to police involved with it, police forms. And so with this process, I was able to observe how the name of the police and how passions with it are not honest in all areas. In other words, in relationship to systemic evidence fabrication problems and to systemic witness fabrication problems and to motivations and roles and needs for our nation's agencies to take part with it and with other international families. Sick natures connected, for example, to what I need to talked about with the serial killer. They threatened me too with this in relationship to the roles related. In other words, their motivations for hurting kids aren't direct, and for having people play multi-front roles hurting them is not direct. It's about in other words, that their motivations are with evidence fabrication, methods and needs and natures that are actually staying our areas, gangland, progressions to natures of organized crime that are not even realized because of forced lies and delusions, not by accident. That's exactly why our books has nothing to do with why our summary convictions are breached. We have no standardized American history. This is what we're going to do, 3 blocks. And we're going to use the facts of their lives, and we're going to learn American history in relationship to the nature of organized crime that was juxtaposed with colonization. See, that's what no one could understand. Means to explain, even though the means to explain it right there, there's correlation. There's means through correlation, not just using religions and how they saved English. In other words, if Islam didn't come along and save algebra, forget about it. That's what brought humanity into the Dark Ages. They were going to steal what they had the litigation natures. Then they had to defend Christianity and the different forms of the different outbreaks from it. In other words, the pathology of nations playing as pseudo-identity, as predatory litigation natures in relationship to terrors, so self-justifying it and justifying it to others. But no one understands it means to explain it without lies and delusions, not by accident. So everyone stayed tooled natures. And everyone went to business and was told to blame it on business. So that's what happens. And then that's why, in other words, even if it was business, one proof it's not business, because if it was business, for example, in Haiti, that's not business. I mean, who's the lawyer that let the standards with them and living in shacks that a little kid could have built bigger than? You know what I'm saying? And they make people only landscape theater. They even did this to the Native Americans. Landscape theater, that's all they remembered. They tactically denatured the Native American landscape, the waters, put them underground, put cities, put tactically denatured landscape. Tied to this jobs narrative, there's nothing. There's nothing. And then you're going to tell someone isolated in there. They have food desert too, like with this. This is all in relationship to the nature of the negotiations with business and with litigation nature and with morality tied to it. As tools, Oz. That's why they put that narrative in there. If there is a devil, that's how you find who was the agent, what was the name of the agent who came up with shock and awe. And I bet it was George Bush, though, who was right to come up with groupthink. Because he's seeing how we're all Oz We're all lost because we were only led to realize to predatory sciences, predatory categorically. And then with linguistics, on all linguistic fields, we lost in the American Revolution. With Putin, we lose actively. Right now, people, millions of people are in need. And needs are being used for extortion left. Natures of litigation natures. We have predatory uses of charity too. We have to religion that. We need to make a means to, I'm out of time, so.